Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the call for tonight. Our 30 days of prayer for this month has gotten off to a wonderful start, and I can hardly believe that we're already halfway through it. I'm very excited for the progress that we've already made, and also for the progress that we're going to make. Today, our topic is going to be freedom. We're going to discuss what it is to be and feel free. And freedom really does take on a different look, really depending on who you're referring to or what aspect of freedom. And there are multiple things that compose wholeness in freedom. Okay, so we will be discussing freedom. So if I, Miss Hart, mention to you the term freedom, what does that mean to you? What do you think about when you think freedom? Being free.
Unbound, happy. Um, I would say like unbound, just complete happiness in your true element, maybe. That's yeah.
Okay. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else who would like to contribute to that? Maybe Jasmine?
Freedom means to me to be financially free, to not be subjected to certain rules, to not be boxed in, to be able to choose how you navigate through life, to be able to be open to many different experiences without restrictions, and for people not to put their beliefs upon you and letting you develop your own.
Oh, that's good. I appreciate, Jasmine, the way that you express yourself. I just wanted to point that out. Not that of you, it definitely does. But I like how when I'm asking for feedback, each of you definitely brings complete line of thought, to it. So I appreciate your contributions from either of you. Let's see. The person who is calling in from the 281 area code, we are speaking today about freedom, and I'm asking everyone what freedom means to you. When you think freedom and being free, what does that mean to you?
When I think freedom, I think not caring what anyone else thinks, living for you and just doing what makes you happy, aligned with God's will, of course, but just living for you and enjoying each moment that you choose in life.
Hello? We can't hear you anymore.
That's it.
Okay, tell me, what's your name?
Melanie.
Okay, Melanie. Thank you for your contributions. I appreciate your input. Is there anyone else who would like to share what being free represents or means to you? Okay, I wrote down some thoughts along with the things that each woman said, and the very first thing I wrote down was uplifted. I think what happens is when we do arrive at a place of freedom, whether it be mental freedom, corporate freedom, financial freedom, even the freeness of a vacation, having our time, our calendars, or schedules free. For me, the totality of it creates a feeling of being uplifted, because freedom for everyone really places us in an unrestricted mindset, and that unrestricted mindset releases us from the burdens the challenges, the obstacles, or the weights that would otherwise drag us down. So for me, it's almost like lifting the weight of other things that we encounter in life. And those things being said, we end up feeling uplifted. And for the other things that are mentioned, being unbound, being in a state of complete happiness in your true element, whether it be financially or otherwise. I love what Jasmine said about being able to freely navigate, okay, because there are many realms and seasons that we exist in within life that really strain our ability to move around, strains our flexibility, which also in turn strains our creativity and our being able to maneuver in diverse situations or to maneuver our lives such that they fit any number of obstacles or seasons or learning experience. So I like what she said about not being locked in, and also the openness to experience. Imagine if freedom existed only in the mind, and really that's where it all starts. But freedom existing in the mind means that we are more open to experience than the people around us, and that's why I always call us progressive women. If we were not progressive, we would not be on this call. You know, if we were not progressive, we would not have any contribution to the call, okay? So the openness to experience really does open up a wide world of opportunity for women like us, because consider some of the women you know who've not been outside of their neighborhoods, who've not been outside of their towns or cities, you know, people who've navigated only within their city or only within that state. And what I will say is that I'm not downgrading or downplaying any person who's not had that opportunity, but what I am saying is without having the type of mentality that is free, our exposure to these things and different people will not enlighten us or inspire us to go outside of our city, our state, our country, to experience other things. So openness to experience is key, because without my being open to experience, for one, I would not be doing this phone call. Tell you that right now, okay? On another hand, I would not be willing to find myself in a camaraderie with women I don't even know, with women that I will never meet, you know, some of whom I may meet later, but at this point in time, am I even open to that? So openness to experience really is huge. It's huge for your growth and success on a personal level as well as a professional level. So keep that in mind. Just make sure that in all things you are as open to experience as is appropriate in that moment, and not just in that moment, but in defining the woman that you want to be, okay? Another thing is that when we're free, we live without restriction, which I mentioned earlier, and then we also learn to live for self, okay? And I would say that is another foundational variable when it comes to being free, is really learning to live for yourself, you know, learning to live for yourself, learning to love and accept and appreciate yourself. As I mentioned in the prior calls, these things are what is going to determine our ability to move around in life, whether we have shackles or structures or rules or otherwise. If we are not living for ourselves, there really is a cap on how free we can actually be. Okay? So, as far as freedom is concerned, I want to tie it into some of the other things that we've been talking about. And I will speak tomorrow about balance. Okay? As we have been speaking, we talked about depression. Okay? We went at great length, had a discussion about depression, about our image and identity, and about self-esteem. And as we closed out that discussion, we spoke about finding our purpose. Each of these things, or clarity in any of those areas, helps us be more and more free, okay? And on the converse of that, any of the freedom that we have or experience in life leads positively to the direction of building your image, building your identity, building your purpose, building your self-esteem. So those things work hand in hand. You really could create the mentality of being free by removing burdens, shackles, strife, removing stress, because we could really just start there. Okay? Removing stress from your life helps you to be more free. And then when we operate from a state of freedom versus a state of compartmentalization, then we're able to be more effective in the things that we do. Okay, so I want you all to take those things into consideration. And this very readily, for me, goes back to what I talked about creating your place of peace. And in your place of peace, there is fullness of joy. There is freedom. And that's why it is for women imperative that in our prayer time, if not any other time, that we create a situation that removes any mental shackles, removes any physical pain, that basically disconnects us from the moment. And that way we can focus on what's good and what's greater in our life and call for some power, some passion that helps us get to exactly where we want to go, because life at this point for any of us is not exactly where we want to be, okay? But I always teach that as women or any individual, we should be molding and shaping our lives according to the women that we want to be in the future. You know, the decisions that we make right now should not be based off of right now. They should be based off of our goals. How do you want your life to look? How do you want to be defined? How do you want to be perceived? And those types of things should play wholly into how you maneuver these days, which again goes back to our prayer time, okay, which then again goes back to our creating peaceful practice in our life, because it helps us to be free. And in those times when we have clear thought, clear purpose, clear intent, then we can make decisions that are more conducive to our longevity in mental health, our longevity in spiritual health, our longevity in our personal lives, our professional lives, as well as the longevity of our relationships. Okay? Let's now share. Let's think on this. So first of all, I want you all to find yourself pondering on moments and times where you felt most shackled. Moments in time where you felt most burdened. Sometimes where you felt like you were under a rock or you were at the mercy of everything around you and you just had no control at all. Because I know that's very difficult for the women that are with me on this call. When we don't have control, we lose it. Okay? So I want you to think back on a time where you did not have any type of control at all, or at least you felt that way. And then I want you to tell me about what it was, what had to happen in that situation, or what had to happen in your mind or your environment that created freedom for you and allowed you to maneuver better. Okay? So thinking on that, is there anyone who would like to share an experience like that and what helped you to get out, or what shifted such that you could get out of that mind state? Ms. Roberts.
Yes, ma'am. I would say a time where I felt overwhelmed was during a time where I was sort of like the caretaker for two family members. And at the same time, when that responsibility came about, I lost my grandmother. And so dealing with the loss of my grandmother and my own personal life, and then helping out the other two family members, it all kind of was like a domino effect where after one thing happened, then the next thing kind of happened, and then the next thing kind of happened. And so for me, I experienced a lot of emotions, a lot of where I felt like there was so much weight on me, and I felt like I was carrying so much of cares of the world and of other people. And I think one of the biggest things, aside from prayer and my relationship with God. I think one of the biggest things that helped me was support from family and my friends who knew what was going on, and so they became my outlet because they allowed me to kind of grieve and deal with things, but they also didn't allow me to kind of soak in things, and they didn't allow me to kind of fall through the cracks too long. So, they would let me talk as much as I needed to talk. They might have even let me cry, but they didn't let me do it to where I got completely off course. So obviously there were some things where I had to stop with certain things, and I had to kind of shift and maneuver myself. But I think just with them being very supportive and being there allowed me to know that I could talk about whatever was going on and that I didn't have to carry it all by myself. That allowed me over time, as I allowed myself to relinquish whatever was going on and to not take on everything, and I had to be okay with not being able to be readily available for this person or that person, but I had to, because I had already detached myself unconsciously. Subconsciously, I had kind of detached myself because of everything that was going on. But to have, certain friends and my sister and my mom and, so forth, and other people who could see it in me and see what was going on, that was there to kind of make sure, I'm sinking, but they was there to keep my head above the water. Even if it was like the water is up to my nose at this point and I'm blowing bubbles, they were still like, okay, you can't drown. And so that is what helped. And so eventually, it didn't happen fast, but eventually when I became open and when I decided to kind of let certain things go, then I got better. And then life no longer became so, it didn't feel as if I was drowning or if I was, carrying so much weight.
Well, thank you, ma'am, for sharing. We appreciate that. Is there anyone else who would like to share a related experience of carrying a lot of weight or carrying a lot of burden where you did not have control and what it took for you to get out and create freedom for yourself? Miss Erica, would you mind sharing? Erica, are you with us still? All right, Jasmine, how about you share?
Um, share a time where I felt the most shackled. That's the question,
Yes.
right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I guess that would be both both times where I was homeless. The first time that I was kicked out of my mother's house with my son who was 7 months old, and then I had to go through the shelter system with a 7 month old baby who I didn't really have any help. I didn't really know how to do things. So, he was sick a lot, and I had to basically do it on my own, and being in a place that was uncomfortable, that was not my home, going through that system, being subjected to their rules, being told when I had to come home, having to sign out and sign in, having to let them know everything that I was doing basically on a day-to-day basis, because I was living within their building, within their rules, within their system. And then having to go through that again, that was at 21, and then that was at 20, and then at 27, I wound up having to go through the same situation, but with another child, and being subjected to that whole thing of being boxed in where you have to follow everyone's rules. And I guess I didn't learn the first time, so I wound up having to go through it again in a different area, living in a different area, and just not being able to do what I wanted to do when I wanted to do it, and being subjected to whatever it is that everyone else was telling me to do and how to do it, and when I had to do this with my child was very taxing on me. And the only way that I found that I could get through it and that I did get through it was because on my face, like I had nowhere to go. It was either this or I'm just gonna let myself fall apart. So my faith was all in God, and that is the only way that I got through it. And from there, having to rebuild myself, I've had to rebuild myself more than one time. So, I have developed a certain level of resilience to a lot of different things, but still I am weak in certain areas. But that is, I think that is why I fight so much against about being boxed into any particular situations, because I have been in those situations, I have survived those situations, and I don't tolerate anyone or anything trying to put me back in those situations, because I'm not going there.
Right. Yes, ma'am. Well, you better say it. That's clarity. Sounds like clarity. All right. I appreciate that, Jasmine. Thank you for sharing. Miss Erica, if we could try again, please share with us a story of your own.
Yes, I feel like a slave on my job at times. We're now under new supervision. My supervisor he's a micromanager, and I was that person in school who got a hall pass every period, because I can't imagine being in one classroom for 90 minutes. That was me. So under this new supervision of a micromanager, I am confined to a cubicle for 8 hours, and I feel so trapped and bound, and it's like I just feel, I'm being honest, y'all, I hate the color gray now because my cubicle is gray. I just feel trapped in there. However, it has allowed me to become a lot better at my job, because the only way I'm allowed out of my cubicle is if I flip cases. So if I get members to join, I'm able to get out of the office because I have to do a new assessment for each member. So now on the team, I'm the case manager with the most flipped cases. I'm the case manager. Like, they don't realize I'm doing it to get out. However, but so I've learned how to use the fact that I can't stand to be confined to this building as an opportunity to, every time I'm on the phone call with a new potential member, I'm working at the best of my ability to flip this case so that it can be a new member for me to case manage. But I feel so confined in that office, y'all. So y'all don't know how hard I work to flip that member so I can get out. So I feel bound. However, me being in that atmosphere has made me so much better when I have to get on the phone and talk with a member. So out of the situation, it has helped me become better at my job.
Thank you for sharing. That's a good story. I know a lot of people can relate to that, especially on the job for different reasons. Melanie, would you like to share an experience of your own? No ideas?
No, sorry.
Don't worry about it. I'm going to share a few things of my own. First of all, going back to what Ms. Erica said, when I worked in corporate America, I had the pleasure of having it wasn't a corner office, but it was in Atlanta. I was in a very tall building, and I had the great misfortune of having a wall of nothing but windows. And in my office, I could see the people outside just going, driving by the expressway. They were on the expressway, and I had a clear view. When I tell you, I spent so much time looking out that window, like, oh, my goodness, what I wouldn't do to be out there with those people. And I could never figure out what people had to do all day long, but it used to be busy. That highway used to be so busy. And I secretly wished to be out there with those people. Now, a few months after that, I had the great pleasure of losing my job. So we'll say, don't look out that window too much if you're not ready to have your present. But I didn't realize at the time that I was secretly praying to God. Okay? I'm going to throw that out there. Okay? I didn't realize that I was praying to God. I was essentially crying out to him. And at the same time, I had reunited with a friend who just lost her job. And I was so highly critical in my own mind of the way that she was spending her time. And I will often think to myself, oh, my goodness, if I lost my job, this is how my mind said it. If I lost my job, this is what I would be doing, and blah, 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 blah. And here I go, not long at all after that, on the day that I was about to sign paperwork to buy a house, I lost my job. And I knew I was going to lose my job. And my mother and sister, for some reason, called me back to back that same exact moment when my boss, who didn't live in my city, she was in my city. And so she said, hey, let's meet over here. And I was like, oh, my goodness. So I had to tell my real estate agent, hold on for a second, got this thing to do. Now, God works in mysterious ways, because had I signed that paperwork prior to going to that meeting, I would not be here with you today right now. So I will say this. As much as our shackles keep us constrained, they also are the foundational point for growth. They're the foundational point for creating clarity. Like a person like Jasmine, who's had those types of experiences, you cannot put this young lady back in that situation ever again, right? And for someone like Miss Hart, who, if you put her in a cubicle, she will work. She will work just so she can get out of that cubicle. Even in a classroom setting, she will do everything that she has to do to get outside of that classroom. We have to see the things that shackle us as really foundational tools to get us where we need to be. In my own case, being self-employed means that it's going to be very hard to get me to ever work for somebody else, which is great, because that means that the time, the effort, the work, and the dedication that I put into what I do should bolster my ability to maintain my self-employment and my longevity. Another thing that I want to share, too, is us being in the chains and shackles of relationships, okay? Many of us have found ourselves in relationships that are counterproductive to every other relationship. And by that, I don't necessarily mean romantic or intimate relationships, but I mean sometimes the relationship with ourselves, the relationship that we have with ourselves, sometimes is very counterproductive to growth in any other relationship, because we tell ourselves things like we can't trust people, or we'll never find someone like us, or we'll never find someone as good as him, or I'm not worthy to be friends with her, or things like that. Relationships, especially past relationships that have hurt us for any reason, really cause us to stifle any progress we're going to make in life on any front. So we have to be mindful of relationships that keep us bound, especially when we're consciously making these decisions. If you have a choice and you're consciously choosing to find yourself entrapped in relationships with yourself or other people, where you can't get out mentally, you can't get out physically, and you can't get out spiritually, then that's a problem. We have to learn to create freedom for ourselves in situations where we do have control and in situations where we don't have control, because the one thing that you should always maintain control of is your mind. And you do that by maintaining control of your peace. There should not be a person in this life that can take your peace from you. There should not be a person in this life who can take your joy from you, because that's too much control for any person other than you to have. And that goes back to our accountability, okay? We have to be accountable and responsible to ourselves and to our own emotions. All too often, we like to make other people responsible for our emotions, and we project those emotions on people who don't deserve them. Now, if you have a hard time dealing with your emotions, what do you expect Billy to do? Imagine how he can't deal with emotions that you can't even control or understand. So I urge in this discussion, freedom really starts with self. It goes back to many of the things that we already said. You know, if we turn our understanding, our definition of freedom into practices that create freedom, then we have ourselves a plan. For example, I'm going to repeat some of the things that we said earlier, and that was to be unbound, to be completely happy in our true element, to be financially free and not locked in, to have free navigation, to be uplifted, to have openness to experience without restriction, to learn to live for self and do what makes us happy. So imagine whatever part of that definition or those examples that resonated with you are things that we need to put into play to not just create freedom, our freeness in mind, body, and soul, but to also maintain it, okay? To learn to maintain our freedom. I happened to be watching Django before this call. I absolutely love that movie. It's hilarious. And something interesting to note about that is, as independent as we are, as strong-willed as we are, imagine if we actually had to exist in the times of slavery. For one, we would definitely be more humble than we currently are. Many of us would not have made it long, okay? At the same time, many of us would have, because we have the freedom to be as bold as we are. We have the freedom to be as outspoken as we are. But how many of us have freedom and free will enough to actually listen and to be obedient, to pay attention to direction and those types of things? So it's almost like, again, going back to what Ms. Hart said about understanding that, okay, you have rules, and as much as you have to exist within the confines of these rules, you use those rules to your advantage, okay, and not using it to stifle you as in the times of slavery perhaps, but using your freedom, your current amount of freedom, to create more freedom, okay? And so I brought up that example showing that we really could take personalities, and in any different situation, they could be very counterproductive. My being so outspoken, I used to get in trouble a lot with my mother. So imagine, like, in slavery time, I just have not a clue what I would have done. Have not a clue. You know, because some of us are entirely too stubborn for our own good. So taking those things into reflection, let us remember that we actually have full control over freedom, because freedom first starts in the mind. Okay, no matter the situation, we have to learn that freedom starts in the mind, and to not find ourselves at the mercy of other things or other people or other people's problems or other people's rules. Okay, now obviously you have to exist in a way that's going to, you know, not cause you to lose a job or something, but use whatever constraints you have to propel you to greater. You know, maybe it's not the call of God in your life to sit behind a cubicle. You know, so use these things as inspiration to maneuver the way that you want to, you know. And I would not do these things slowfully. I will not do these things lacking a clear-cut purpose. I would not do these things without a deadline, such as what we spoke about yesterday. And having your purpose is not just enough to know your purpose. You have to act in that purpose, okay? And within this particular context, it's not enough to desire freedom. We must create freedom in our lives, all right? As is inspired by Kiki Shear's song, Free. It's a brilliant song. You should listen to it. I'll probably add it to the Facebook page later. Is there anyone who has something to share or add to the discussion or a question to ask prior to prayer?
Good afternoon, good evening. I would like to add, we were a military family. And during that time of the Desert Storm, I don't know if anybody remember that, I had a husband over there and I had a brother over there. And with the news media, they just kept you informed on too much. You couldn't do anything without hearing something about Desert Storm. So that had a big, that was just terrible for me. And raising 2 kids at home. I did not have family here, but I did have some friends. I had coworkers, and I went to my church every Sunday, every Wednesday night. So the prayer helped me, and I kept busy. So I just wanted to bring that out.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate you for sharing that. That's actually something great to add to the discussion because in order for me personally to maintain my sense of peace and my sense of freedom, I actually don't watch the news. The news is very, very depressing. There's always something going on. And while a lot of people like to stay informed, and that's good, especially when, political season comes around, you have to be current on current things. Yet a lot of that stuff leads and contributes to negativity within our minds. It contributes to a lot of being fearful of things that we're not always actually subjected to. They create fears. It creates fears in our minds, especially if we're not doing as Ms. Hart did, which is, be updated or be current, but also find ways to balance out this information, because you can't say that you would just definitely not pay attention if you have someone that is, participating in these things. But we definitely have to find balance. And so I would like to pull out from that example that you have to find balance. There are things in our lives that we just can't help but pay attention to, that we just can't help but be in the vicinity of. But again, we have to learn how not to have these things take control of our minds by having support systems or by participating in situations that lead to the positive side of things, that help remind us of the positive side of things, and that help us maintain our level of endurance and essentially build our resilience in times of strife or trouble. So thank you, Ms. Hart, for sharing that with us.
You're
Is
welcome.
there anything? Yes, ma'am. Is there anything anyone else would like to contribute? Ms. Thompson, do you have anything that you would like to say? Okay.
Hello.
So, go ahead. Are you going?
I didn't have anything. I was just trying to get you off mute to say I didn't have nothing to say.
Okay. Okay. So we will proceed with prayer. If you all would join me in first relaxing and creating a mindset of freedom in this moment. I want you to inhale, and I really, really, really hope you all are doing these things as I ask you to do them. I want you to inhale, take a deep breath, breathe out all the negativity. And when you're inhaling, think positive thoughts and releasing and letting go of anything that's cluttering your mind or your better judgment. Father God, in the name of Jesus, we come before you first of all, thanking you for life, for breath, for breathing. I ask, Father, that you will remove the weight of past pain from us, God, as you forgive us for everything negative in this moment that we have thought, everything negative that we have committed in our actions and our deeds, Father, everything negative that we had said, God. Please forgive us of all of our sins, God. I pray that in this moment, God, you create within us an appreciation, a respect for freedom, God. Create within us mentalities that practice freedom in our actions, in our deeds, God, and even within our truths, God. Let us be emotionally compelled to create more and more peace in our lives, God, such that we will feel and be free, God. Let us understand that freedom is a choice, God, and by us being independent, progressive, thought-provoking, strategic, and purpose-driven women, God, let us create more and more freedom for ourselves such that we may be elevated within your kingdom, God, to lead your children and more daughters to greatness in their own lives, God. I speak toward all of the shackles that we currently have, Father, asking right now, God, that you would make these things easier for us, not just making them easier, God, but creating more wisdom within us such that we learn how to maneuver within challenging situations, God, such that we learn how to use our struggle for good, Father, as learning opportunities upon which to bolster our future progression and longevity, Father. I pray that we will continually come to you, understanding that you are our throne of grace, God, and you can bring us as much peace as we will allow, God. So let us open our minds, our hearts, our souls, and our beings, God, to more awareness of what peace is and how we may create and then maintain it in our lives, God. I pray that we begin to consciously release, God, the weights of the world, the weights that we've carried for years in some cases, God. Let us release those things, God. Let us make pure practice of releasing those things right now, God. Right now, let us destroy those chains in our minds, those connections to problems of the world, weights of the world, and other people that keep us chained, God, that keep us in a mindset of strife, in a mindset of difficulty, God, in a mindset of slavery, God. We have slavery mentalities, God, simply because we are shackled in our minds, God. And I pray right now, release of those things right now, God. I pray your miraculous release of those things right now, God, starting first with our mind, God, then starting also in our feelings, our emotions, God, such that we will begin to take actions, God, consistent with freedom mentalities, God, such that we will begin to live more fearless lives, God, more carefree lives, God, that are progressive-minded and also progressive in thought, in deed, and in truth, God, such that we can keep realness at the forefront of our minds, God, realness with ourselves, honesty with ourselves, and we can be introspective enough, God, to know where we are as far as what our mindset is, God. Let us begin to be breeding grounds and breeding places, God, leading ladies of a love for freedom, God, a love for freedom, a love for freedom in mind, God, and peace in our actions, God. Let us lead peaceful lives, God, that are pleasing to you, God. Let us learn to grieve, God, without wallowing in the grief, God, that has been brought to our attention, God. Let us not dwell in painful places, God. Let us not dwell. We cannot dwell, God, because it's not healthy for us, God. We cannot dwell in states of weakness, God, in states of negativity, in states that are counterproductive to progress, God. These things shackle us. These things stifle us, God, and they create stagnation in our life, God, and that is dead, so we know that it is not of you, God. Let us begin to embrace our negative emotions, God, and begin to express them in virtuous ways that glorify you. Let us use these challenges that we have faced together and as individuals to glorify you, God. Let us share these stories in ways that show our own growth and also demonstrate the growth that others can experience, God. As we keep our eyes on the prize, we pray that you help us keep our head above water. God, let us become more open by letting go. Let us become more open, God, by letting go, making firm decisions to let go, to destroy miscellaneous connections, God, to leave painful practice in the past, God. Let us learn to encounter challenges as learning opportunities and abilities for us to grow, Father. Let us develop skills that help us to maneuver within these new seasons, leaving nothing behind that we have learned such that we will not have to repeat experiences again, God, because you are not a God of repetition. You are a God of sound mind, sound vision, and sound judgment, God. So create within us that type of clarity such that we can make decisions that aid to our growth, God. Let us not go backwards. Let us continually go forward, God. Let us learn that we can rebuild time and time again by choice, God. Anytime that something is broken, God, let us know that we can fix it. Anytime that something is shackled, let us understand that we can break those chains by choice, God. Let us begin to rebuild the things in our life that are broken, God. Let us begin to heal the wounds in our life, God, that cause us most pain, God. Let us get to the root of these issues such that we can heal not just ourselves, but such that we can be the leading ladies that heal the land, God. Let us be examples of stewardship, God. Let us be example of character. Let us be example of being virtuous, God. Let others model themselves after us in our deeds, in our behaviors, in our lifestyles, in our professional circles, God, in our social circles. Let us be the light of your world. Let us be the light of your kingdom. Let us to learn, God, to operate within these rules that you give us, God. Let us learn to operate with them, and let us learn also to operate without them, God, because too much freedom could also be counterproductive, God. So as you begin to release this freedom in our lives, in our jobs, in our opportunities, within our decisions, within our households, as you begin to release blessings of freedom, God, let us learn to operate well within freedom, God. Don't give us too much, because sometimes that can break us, God. Give it to us little by little, God, as much as we can handle at any given time, God. And in some cases, let us just dive in so that we can learn to swim, God, and let us be open to that experience such that we can make profitable progress very quickly, God. Let us build our new growth on past struggle, understanding that those struggles were allowed by none other than you, God. And it is by your will that we have tarried through diverse situations, diverse temptations, and we will use these things for your glory, God, for good and never for evil. I pray peace, abiding peace, abundant peace that will tarry within the lives of these women, that will tarry within their work environment, that will tarry within their spiritual environments, God, that will tarry within their minds, God. I pray for peace and an abundance of freedom, God, and not just praying for it, God, but I pray that we begin to act in accordance with that, creating peaceful practice in our lives on a regular basis. God, I pray your wisdom in this moment, God, such that we know where we can get started with creation of freedom. I pray these things and all in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Thank you, ladies, for, again, participating. Does anyone have, before we close, any prayer requests for this evening? All right. So moving forward, tomorrow we will speak about balance, creating balance in our lives. And as much as we have spoke about all of these other things, there is a great call upon our lives to have balance, because without balance, there really is no way that we can maintain peace or all of these other things that we have spoke about. So tomorrow, the 17th, we speak about balance. If there's anyone who would like to add to our topic list, please let me know, and we will incorporate it as much as I possibly can. Does anyone, before we leave, have any final thoughts that you would like to contribute or any questions that you would like to ask? Okay. So I will announce to you all that I was so inspired by the discussions that we've had about depression, the discussions that we had about image and identity, that I came up with an entire outline of speaking points, different things that we definitely need to dwell on as it relates to those three areas. And what I will begin to do in the very near future is to create a line of online coursework, which will be made available to you for free. And I will pass along those details as it becomes available. But be on the lookout for that. And I'll also be very willing to share that information, that line of expositories, so to speak. Be ready to share that information with others, because I know that there are many of us on the call who would definitely attach to the content of those three topics. So if you have anything that you would like to personally share as it relates to those things, please keep me advised of that, and I will do as best as I can to incorporate your own thoughts into the line of videos that I will be creating for ourselves as well as others. Okay? Any more final thoughts? Okay. So I wish you all great joy and great peace in this life, and I pray that we are continuing to act in the seat of accountability to ourselves and to the women around us, learning that our love starts first with ourselves and it flows out from us like a river to everyone in our vicinity. I pray that you all sleep very well this evening. You all have a great, great, great night.
You too.
You too. Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Good night.